Okay, I'm closing in on 200 fantasy football drafts, and I think that these rankings probably are, I don't want to say exactly what they'll be by the time the season starts off, but they're getting there. We are getting a solid set of wide receiver rankings, and here I'm going to cover the top 24, not only rankings, but also tiers. Don't skip to the end of the video, look at the tier list, and then go to the comment section and go, oh, Mason, you idiot, how is Terry McLaurin that low? No, please, hear me out. Let me actually explain these rankings if you want to try to learn something, and then you can go down to the comment section and let me know how stupid I am. But before you do that, make sure you drop a like in the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and that should be it. Let's go ahead and let's dive into these players. Wide receiver 1, Cooper Kupp. Now, he is not going to be alone in this tier. I think that there are actually 4 wide receivers this season that have it in the range of outcomes to be the wide receiver 1 overall this season. With Cooper Kupp, we cannot understate how good this man was last year. This is a wide receiver that had 3.4 yards per route run. Just think about that. There are running backs in the NFL that had less yards per carry than Cooper Kupp had yards per route run. He averaged over 11 targets a game. He had 114 receiving yards a game, and he had 31% of this team's target share in Los Angeles. Now, I understand, yes, you are getting Allen Robinson added in, but Robert Woods is gone. Odell Beckham Jr. was there half the year. So Allen Robinson, especially if we look at the lack of dominance, lack of ability that Allen Robinson showed last season, there's no reason we should assume that Allen Robinson is a bigger threat for Cooper Kupp's target share than Robert Woods or Odell Beckham Jr. were. So he's almost in the exact same type of situation. And if we go through and if we look at it historically, I don't necessarily want to just look at his points per game because, yeah, if we look at his points per game, you will see Cooper Kupp one of the best wide receiver seasons of all time. But if we also go through and if we look at since the year 2000, wide receivers to average over 110 receiving yards a game and at least 30% of their team's target share, you have Cooper Kupp this past season. Then you have prime Antonio Brown, 2015 Antonio Brown. And Thomas, please throw up the Antonio Brown statistics to just see that stretch of dominance that he showed. And then you have prime Julio Jones in 2013 and 2015 accomplishing this as well. I think there's an argument for a couple of these other wide receivers in this tier to potentially finish ahead of Cooper Kupp this upcoming season. I can't pull the trigger, though. Cooper Kupp has to be our wide receiver 1 overall. I think it's going to be very hard to have anything else. And then our wide receiver 2, Justin Jefferson. Earlier this offseason on Underdog, JaMarr Chase was going at wide receiver 2, and I was like, oh my gosh, y'all are idiots. How is Chase going here? I am so smart. One of my smartest things this year will be Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver 2, and we're going to get Justin Jefferson everywhere. Well, no, people have changed their mind. Justin Jefferson now going back-to-back with Cooper Kupp. Some drafts, Justin Jefferson is going ahead of Kupp, and this is a wide receiver that has been on pace to be one of the best wide receivers of all time through the first 2 years of his NFL career. Obviously broke out right away in 2020 with 24% of this team's target share, 2.7 yards per route run. He continues to expand his role in this offense this past year. He posted top 5 finish at the position. He has a 27% team target share. And there's upside for more with Justin Jefferson because this is a wide receiver where his touchdown rate has been league average. They've been leaning on Adam Thielen a ton in the red zone, which probably will still happen, but there's the outside chance that they actually decide, oh, hell, Justin Jefferson developed going into year 3. The man's only, 23 years old, so that's probably going to continue to happen. And now, all of a sudden, he's our best option in the red zone. And if you see that touchdown rate come up to 10% and everything else remains the same, Justin Jefferson could easily finish as the wide receiver 1 this upcoming season. I mean, at 22 years old, he had 130 intended air yards per game, according to RotoViz, which puts him number 1 in the NFL at 22 years old. Now let's go over to JaMarr Chase, wide receiver 3. Nobody's going to be arguing with this with JaMarr Chase here. Another very impressive start of a career. He actually has a better rookie season. If you're looking at his fantasy positional finish compared to where Justin Jefferson was, he finishes as the wide receiver 5 this past season. And this Cincinnati Bengals offense can possibly be better. With the improvement to the offensive line, there's a chance that they go, okay, well, now we don't have to worry about Joe Burrow's leg breaking every time he drops back. You know what we can do now? We can push the pace of play. The Cincinnati Bengals, surprisingly, they weren't there with Buffalo. They weren't there with Los Angeles. They weren't there with Dallas. They were not pushing the pace of play as you see other top NFL passing offenses do. And if all of a sudden that changes, there could be more passing volume overall. And this is a team that we know concentrates targets only between 3 players with Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. Now, if you look at Underdog Fantasy, you are going to see that there is this group of guys, Kupp, Jefferson, Chase, they all go back to back to back. And then you have a small gap. And then after that, you have guys like Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, sometimes Najee Harris. You have some running backs going before our next wide receiver, Stefan Diggs. I honestly want to say that Stefan Diggs should be in the same tier as these other 3 guys. I believe it's in the range of outcomes for Stefan Diggs to come out this upcoming season and to be the wide receiver 1 overall. Now, I know that's aggressive. That's why I have Stefan Diggs as one of my most drafted wide receivers in terms of the top 10 guys on Underdog Fantasy right now. And if you have not done so already, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Go use promo code FLOCK. Have some fun. Get into some real money fantasy football drafts. I'm almost in over 200 of those drafts. So yeah, we've been grinding away. I'm going to continue to live stream those every single day until the start of the season. So you can get into a draft with us on the live stream, get into a draft with us in the public lobby, or just hell, go have some fun on your own. And when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy with the link in the description and you use promo code FLOCK, they will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. You will get all our 2022 rankings. You will get all my Dynasty rankings, my Dynasty rookie rankings. You'll get my 2022 Dynasty rookie draft guide. So please make sure you're taking advantage of that. And with Stefan Diggs, this is a wide receiver that should be in a top 3 passing offense this upcoming season in Buffalo. This is a wide receiver that has back-to-back seasons for the Buffalo Bills with over 25% of his team's target share. This is a wide receiver that had 114 intended air yards per game this past season. The marks across the board for Stefan Diggs, elite. And now the situation is better than what it was because you have no Emmanuel Sanders. You have no Cole Beasley. Those 2 players leaving open up 184 targets in this offense. Now, I know everybody and their mom thinks, oh, Gabriel Davis, the next best thing. Gabriel Davis is right now on Underdog. I would not sign up for Underdog and draft Gabriel Davis. I would sign up for Underdog and avoid Gabriel Davis is being drafted as a top 24 option because the man posted 202 receiving yards in a single game against the Kansas City Chiefs last year. And I understand, yes, he looked great in that one game. I understand there are 184 targets opening up in Buffalo, and this is a top 5 offense in their pass to run ratio, and this is a top 5 offense as well in their pace of play. Like, this is going to be a team airing the ball out. They have an elite quarterback. The passing, honestly, I don't think Gabriel Davis all of a sudden goes to be a wide receiver with 140 targets, with 130 targets this upcoming season. I think Gabriel Davis steps into an Emmanuel Sanders role where he is the primary, I don't want to say decoy, but primary deep threat in this offense, taking safety attention away for Stefan Diggs to potentially get to a Davante Adams level target share, for Stefan Diggs to potentially get to 30% of his team's targets. And in an offense that's as dynamic as the Buffalo Bills, Stefan Diggs does have upside to be that league-breaking wide receiver this season. Truly league-breaking wide receiver like you saw from Cooper Kupp last year. I think he has to be in this top tier. No, I'm not taking him over those top 3 guys, which is why he's ranked at 4. But I'm honestly taking him over some of those running backs going before him. Now let's drop it down a tier. Let's go over to Davante Adams, wide receiver 5. With Davante Adams, this was a player that was my most drafted option from round 1 of fantasy drafts last season, mainly because I was looking at Davante Adams and going, oh, we can get Adams in the first and Joe Mixon in the second. Sign me up for that every single time. But now I'm off of Adams. This is a significantly worse situation. Yes, Derek Carr was top 5 in the NFL in passing yards last season when he was throwing the ball to Hunter Renfrow. Darren Waller missed 6 games. Zay Jones was like the second best option in Las Vegas last year. Like, this was an abysmal situation, and Derek Carr was still great. I think Derek Carr is an underrated NFL quarterback overall. However, my issue with this situation is we can all be on the same page. While Derek Carr may be a good NFL quarterback, he is not Aaron Rodgers. He's nothing close to Aaron Rodgers. And while Hunter Renfrow isn't exactly a star, Hunter Renfrow is a lot better than Allen Lazard. Hunter Renfrow is a lot better than Marquez Valdez-Scantling in the ability to take targets away. And Darren Waller's there. Darren Waller should be a significant upgrade compared to Robert Tonyan that Davante Adams was going up against. So if you're looking at Davante Adams, who averaged almost 30% of his team's targets on a per game basis in Green Bay over the past 3 years, he has been by far and away the best wide receiver in fantasy football. I think the volume goes down for Davante Adams, and I think the efficiency goes down as well because of the quarterback play. For those reasons, while he may be an elite level option, I can't have him in the top tier with these other guys, and that's why I think Stefan Diggs is in a tier above him. I think Diggs has less target competition with better quarterback play. Now let's move down a tier. Let's go over to a wide receiver 6. This will be CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb, yes, has disappointed fantasy owners back-to-back seasons now. I believe CeeDee Lamb, let me pull this up, was the wide receiver 16 last year. And yeah, wide receiver 16, someone that had 20% of his team's targets, 2.2 yards per route run though. And CeeDee Lamb, I talk about this with someone later in Jerry Jeudy. This is a wide receiver that is incredibly young. I think the expectations that people put onto CeeDee Lamb with Amari Cooper in town, honestly, maybe a little unfair. I don't know if it's because Dallas just gets the most coverage, because obviously the Dallas Cowboys are the Dallas Cowboys, but I think if you're looking at the targets available in this offense, with not only Amari Cooper leaving, but Cedric Wilson's gone as well, that makes a difference. Because yes, you see, okay, well, Michael Gallup maybe plays more games this year. They bring in Jalen Tolbert. Well, we don't know if Jalen Tolbert's as good as Cedric Wilson. We know for a damn fact that Michael Gallup is not good as Amari Cooper. So there will be more targets available in this offense for CeeDee Lamb. Dalton Schultz played every single game last year. Dalton Schultz was already a top 5 tight end. Like, you think Dalton Schultz is going to get better? I think Schultz has probably capped out. Still a great option, but it's not like Dalton Schultz is going to be picking up these extra targets over to the middle of the field. I think if we're looking at CeeDee Lamb, we're looking at the efficiency that he showed whenever he was on the field his second year at 22 years old. We can expect some natural progression. Yes, reports saying the man grew half an inch, gained 10 pounds of muscle. I don't care about that. I don't care about that, but I do care about the fact that he was a highly efficient wide receiver at 22 years old. And now there's a much larger role for him in one of the league's best offenses. The Dallas Cowboys were number 1 in the NFL last year in points scored. Number 1 in the NFL. If CeeDee Lamb can bump up his target share from 20% to 25%, this is what makes him the elite breakout. This is what truly does elevate CeeDee Lamb to that next level of superstar. Now let's go through our next wide receiver, still in the same tier, Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 7. Honestly, Deebo Samuel is the hardest player to rank this upcoming season. This is a wide receiver that if you look at his age, technically he should be stepping into the prime of his career. This is a wide receiver that last year was the wide receiver 3 on a points per game basis. So yeah, we're expecting some regression from Deebo Samuel. I think that there are clear reasons and why we should be expecting that. And the most telling reason, in my opinion, is going to be Trey Lance coming in. With Deebo Samuel, one of the main reasons, if not the main reason he was the wide receiver 3 in fantasy last season was due to the rushing production, specifically the rushing touchdowns. Deebo Samuel had 8 rushing touchdowns last year. Now, I think the rushing yardage probably doesn't go away. I think they still continue to use Deebo Samuel in a creative fashion, especially with Lance. But all of a sudden, when you bring Lance in with the read option ability, specifically at the goal line, I think it's damn near impossible to project that Deebo Samuel has the ability to score 8 rushing touchdowns again. And on top of this, with Deebo Samuel, very rarely, very, very rarely am I willing to go out of my way and say, yeah, a wide receiver is injury prone. A player in fantasy football is injury prone. I think 9 times out of 10, when someone comes out here and labels a player as injury prone, they're going to be unfairly judging them based off a small sample. The perfect example is people labeling Keenan Allen as an injury-prone wide receiver so long ago in his NFL career because of torn ACL, a kidney laceration, like some random stuff. I mean, you felt bad for the man, and people were holding it against him. Well, Deebo Samuel, if you look at the injury list, Oh, Thomas, throw it up. I believe this is from like Draft Sharks, but oh my gosh. Combine this with the usage of him as a running back getting 10 touches a week. I am slightly concerned with overall regression with rushing touchdowns for Deebo Samuel, and I'm concerned about injuries. Not to mention that now Trey Lance with the rushing ability maybe doesn't look to check the ball down as often to a wide receiver who has the lowest average depth of target in the NFL. That's why I'm expecting regression for Deebo Samuel, and why I do not think he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver again, despite the fact, the man was drafted in 2019. You'd assume that he's stepping into his prime just now. Now let's go over to our next wide receiver. Wide receiver 8 is going to be Mike Evans. With Evans, he is going to start the season, oh my gosh, as an alpha target here in Tampa in one of the best passing offenses in the NFL. Yeah, they pay Russell Gage $30 million. Russell Gage will have a large role, but we can assume that Chris Godwin will potentially miss the first 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks of the season. Now, I will say, if you're playing in a traditional format where you submit your starting lineup every single week and you actually get to make trades throughout the season, I would be fine bumping Mike Evans up, honestly, to the top of this tier, because nobody should be surprised through the first month of the season if this is a team that now has no Antonio Brown, now has no Chris Godwin, and we know Tom Brady is out there. I don't want to say stat padding, but Tom Brady's out there with his legacy in the back of his mind, not only going for the best football player all the time, but probably the best athlete of all time. And if he's going to continue to throw the ball with aggression inside the 10-yard line, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were at the very top of the NFL in passing rate in the red zone. The craziest thing I remember seeing last year was literally just watching the TV, looking at the Bucs play the Chicago Bears. The Bucs were up 35-0. It was like the end of the third quarter. First and goal, maybe on the 3-yard line, something like that. Pass, incompletion, first down. Pass, incompletion, second down. Pass, incompletion, third down. They're up 35-0. What did they do at that point? They go forward on fourth to throw the ball yet again. And Tom Brady is out there to score touchdowns. Tom Brady's out there to put up passing yards. We know he's going to do it with whoever is at wide receiver. And Mike Evans has been the number 1 player in the NFL in touchdown rate over the past 2 seasons, which usually I fade. Usually I go, okay, that touchdown rate is going to come down to earth. Not when you're Mike Evans playing on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, let's go to our last wide receiver in this tier. Our last wide receiver is going to be Tyreek Hill. I had Tyreek Hill ranked above this at the beginning of the offseason, but obviously so much has changed. Here you have to be worried about Tua Tagovailoa being a bad quarterback overall. I still have a ton of Jalen Waddle in these drafts. We'll get to our Jalen Waddle ranking in another video. With Tyreek, very similar to what you're seeing with Davante Adams, but almost to a greater extent, because I think we can all agree Derek Carr probably a better quarterback than Tua Tagovailoa based on what we've seen through their respective careers up to date. And if we are looking at the target competition for Tyreek Hill, he's going from, yes, Kelsey was playing over the middle of the field, but at wide receiver, his number 2 option next to him was Byron Pringle. His number 3 option next to him was McCall Harbert. It depended on how you want to break it down. Maybe you put Demarcus Robinson in that camp. I don't care. Now he's going up against Jalen Waddle, who was a wide receiver 1 his rookie season. I think Tyreek Hill is still the wide receiver 1 in this offense, but not only do you have Waddle, you have Cedric Wilson coming over. You have Mike Gesicki taking targets as well. I am unsure if this overall target totem pole is going to be so concentrated at the top like you can project for the Cincinnati Bengals as you can for, honestly, the Las Vegas Raiders as well. I'm worried about the overall offensive efficiency. We are going to be dropping down Tyreek Hill to 9. Now let's go down a tier. Let's go over to our wide receiver 10, Keenan Allen. I honestly think you could have Allen higher than this. If we head over to Underdog Fantasy right now, make sure you go to the link in the description. Go hop in some of these drafts, just stalling so I can get this ADP pulled up. But you're going to see that Keenan Allen going later than this, despite Keenan Allen posting a wide receiver 1 season every single year over the past 3. Keenan Allen, one of the most consistent options in fantasy football, regardless of what statistic you are looking at, going as the wide receiver 12 on Underdog. I'm going to have him ranked as the wide receiver 10. This is a player that the one red flag you can look at, obviously the age, is going in like year 10 of his NFL career. It's ridiculous. But the air yards per game have dramatically dropped down over the past 3 seasons. It's been a straight line down for Keenan Allen, but the target share remains the same. If you're looking at the overall passing efficiency with Justin Herbert there, going into year 3. I think we can assume that Justin Herbert continues to take strides forward. It's going to be a great offense overall. He has the guaranteed target share. So I'm fine going through and drafting Keenan Allen, wide receiver 10. And our wide receiver 11, T. Higgins. I know this is aggressive whenever we have JaMarr Chase as a top 3 option this season, but if you're looking at T. Higgins was already a low-end wide receiver 1 last year. T. Higgins actually led this team in overall target share and air yards. T. Higgins is getting used down the field, and what you love to see with the Cincinnati Bengals is the fact that they only use JaMarr Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. There's nobody else that you really have to be concerned with in terms of getting targets. If we look at the wide receivers who drew targets last season, the combination of Chase, Higgins, and Boyd had 332. All other wide receivers on this roster had 27. That is exactly what you need to support 2 top-level options, especially if we assume that the Cincinnati Bengals pick up their pace of play compared to where it was last year. I think you could easily see Joe Burrow turn into a better version of 2019 Jameis Winston, like 2019 Jameis Winston without turnovers. I think you'd have JaMarr Chase as Chris Godwin. I think you could have T. Higgins as Mike Evans. Now let's go to our last wide receiver in a very bad situation. On Underdog, he's actually being drafted before T. Higgins. He's being drafted before Keenan Allen. This is probably going to change. I'd imagine he falls down a bit. But A.J. Brown. Now, A.J. Brown, I will say, if we were just ranking the most talented wide receivers today in the NFL, I think you can have an argument that A.J. Brown easily top 5. This is a wide receiver that the only player that has averaged as many yards per route run over the past 3 seasons has been Davante Adams. And that was A.J. Brown's rookie season, sophomore year, and junior year in the NFL. That's ridiculous for the efficiency that you've seen from him. Now, my issue with A.J. Brown is he's going from a rush-first offense in the Tennessee Titans to a rush-first offense in the Philadelphia Eagles. So maybe that's not that much worse. I don't think you can argue that Jalen Hurts is that much worse than Ryan Tannehill. But what you can look at is you can look at the target competition. If we're comparing Devontae Smith to Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, if we're comparing Anthony Firkser to freaking Dallas Goedert, like the target competition is significantly higher in Philadelphia. So you're going to be on a offense that the passing volume's low overall. Not only is the passing volume going to be low overall, but at the same time, you're just getting a bump up with competition. You can't be Terry McLaurin in this offense. You're not going to average 30% of your team's targets, even though I'd love to see it. I think A.J. Brown is one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL, but he's being drafted as wide receiver 10 on Underdog right now. I'm probably going to be avoiding him at that price. I still think he's a top 10 wide receiver. I still think he's in these rankings. But that should be it. We'll get another video where I go through my top 24. It looks like the top 12 took quite a while. But that should be it. Thank you so much for being a part of the vlog. I truly do appreciate you. And if you haven't done so already, go down there. Subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. Drop a like in this video. And if you want to get into real money fantasy football drafts with me, today, tomorrow, the next day, any day you want, I'll be streaming on Underdog Fantasy. You can find the link in the description. Go sign up with promo code FLOCK to get all those cool things. Most importantly, have some fun, get into some fantasy football drafts. That's all I got for you. Hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow.